Okay, Mr. Tilghman, how do you think the debate went for you today?
I felt much more confident about my presentations to the public. I think that there were some issues that I was kind of peripheral on, and I think I made some more solid points. To coin a phrase, put a little more meat on the bones of this candidacy and gave people a better appreciation of who it is that they will be electing if I get fortunate enough to get the nod to go to Congress at the national level.
So when you compare and contrast your candidacy with all the other candidates in this race, where do you think on the issues you were the strongest?
I think that the relationship between the quote-unquote front runners, Beto O'Rourke, Sylvester Reyes, was manifest here. Acrimony is what defines that relationship. Beto O'Rourke was in for 6 years. Sylvester Reyes was in for 16. That's 22 years total. If the acrimony did not exist, a number of the issues we're talking about should be in the solved column in the history book. But you don't save up issues to run on. If you consider yourself a public servant, you are day one out the gate trying to do things in a collaborative manner with whomever is in public office. And Beto showed himself not to be that guy. Case in point, any soldier would know that since the Revolutionary War, war will produce veterans and veterans with disabilities. It hasn't been within the past 4 months that Beto O'Rourke has ever even talked about a veterans hospital. We've had that need from the beginning. Sylvester had an opportunity to get this thing on board as well. Veronica Escobar came to a rally about 4 years ago. The lady's name is Lupe Weaver. She sponsored it. Veronica Escobar came in and said...
That was at the VFW in the Northeast
side. That's right, the VFW in the Northeast. Veronica Escobar said unequivocally, the speed bump for the Veterans Hospital is Sylvester Reyes. That's a quote. She said that. So this is not a new issue. Okay. But you don't sit on issues. When you sit on issues, people suffer. In this case, soldiers suffer. Let me extend the point a little further under the Congressman Reyes umbrella. I grew up in Washington, D.C. Capitol Hill is 10 miles from Walter Reed. Who found out that the place was dilapidated? The Washington Post. If you have 435 people in the House of Representatives, another 100 in the Congress, and somebody from the Washington Post is going up there to tell you that soldiers are being underserved in a dilapidated facility, you have just decredited yourself and your validity as one who says they care for soldiers.
Now, in the beginning, in the opening statement of the debate today, you came out guns blazing. You came out with a very sharp critique of not only of the two frontrunners, Congressman Reyes and Representative O'Rourke. Why that strategy, and is that going to continue?
Well, the short answer is yes, it's going to continue. The larger version is that we are putting a down payment on the status quo if we put either one of them in office. We're putting a down payment on the status quo. The track record bears itself out. If Beto is saving up issues to run on, people suffer, soldiers suffer, all right? If the congressman knew about the Veterans Hospital issue, and he has other elected officials from the Democratic Party saying he is the speed bump, therein lies the problem. This is not Jerome Tilghman saying it. This is evidence on the books. When he, in an El Paso Times article on the 14th of February, saying that the voice of the people is being drowned out by the PAC money and family wealth, he's criticizing Beto O'Rourke. But his $700,000 is coming from bucks inside the Beltway. The larger share of his war chest is coming from the very people who he's condemning on the Beto O'Rourke side. Now, Beto O'Rourke says in a quote in that paper, I have never talked to my father-in-law about this PAC. We have never discussed the issues surrounding it. I don't know how much money is going to come in. This is a guy who is married to the daughter of the head of the Paso del Norte group and the head of this new PAC that he's putting out. Now, Pinocchio should have been right there on the editorial page. I'm McCall Garcia. That should have been a Beto O'Rourke growing nose. Now, he may be telling the truth, but do you believe it?
So that begs the follow-up question, wouldn't you take that money?
That's not to say, but I would say it. I wouldn't BS anybody. If I'm married to the guy's daughter, Do you think we're not going to have a conversation about those kinds of issues? He already has a history of being tied to the Paso del Norte group with Stanton Street Technologies, and some of the things that he had accepted contract work for from the Paso del Norte group while he was a voting member of City Council.
So let's go to one of the most controversial issues, and we'll wrap the interview up with this, and that was this issue that's been hanging over the entire campaign, and that's drug legalization. And pretty much everybody has made their position crystal clear on where they stand, whether you support it or not, whether they're for it or against it. Everyone's pretty much made their position on that issue crystal clear, with the exception of Jerome Tilghman. Where do you stand on that issue?
I would not legalize, and I'll tell you why. All right. First of all, if you surround the largest and fastest growing military installation in the country with a drug culture, you have put temptation in the pathway of soldiers whose careers could be ruined. The soldier wouldn't have to be the user, it could be a family member. He could be coming on post not even aware that a son or a daughter or a spouse could be packing. So what have we done? We have flushed a career down the toilet with that kind of decision making. Point number two, if at the national level we have not legalized this, El Paso becomes a black market. Why? Because if it's legal here and not legal in adjacent communities, in adjacent counties, this will simply be a cachet. And somebody will get on an airplane, fly to some place that they know is not legal, and sell it. We become a marketplace, but a black marketplace for it. Point number three, we have people killing each other in vehicles every day. Alcohol, distracted driving, cell phones, text messaging, and things like that. It is the #1 killer for the 18 to 24 demographic in the country. Why would we add one more bad choice to the menu of bad choices that drivers are making already with that legalization? You have 100,000 addicts already, according to Abeytia. The comment that Mr. Corin made, I think that's his name, that there's no drug problem in the Army. There was no place to look. I looked on the floor. I tried not to undignify the forum by this facial expression that I had. But the Army substance abuse program is alive and well because we do have an epidemic coming out of Southwest Asia where the largest source of narcotics is coming from.
You've received some criticism for positions that, if they don't outright say it, they certainly imply that you would be supportive of boots on the ground in Mexico to help quell some of the violence down there. Can you clarify your position on that?
Sure. I go back to a conversation you and I had before. The drug cartels have no reason to look over their shoulder. That's why the problem is on our doorstep. If President Obama sees the value of special operations and has used them successfully in neutralizing Osama bin Laden, he has gone into Somalia, a hotbed of controversy, even dating back to one of my old Ranger buddies, Ranger units in Somalia with Black Hawk Down, saw the quagmire that place was. Our footprint was too large there, our footprint is too large in Southwest Asia. If you put a smaller force on the ground and at least cause persons who are part of the cartel to think that there's a possible threat, we may begin to mitigate this problem. And I think that boots on the ground should be part of the options, as President Obama has stated, for any issue that impacts the national security of the United States. Every option should be on the table, including the use of special operations.
So I guess another question along those lines is, you raised this issue during the debate, and that was the shooting, the cross-border shooting.
That's right.
Where there was a stray bullet that hit someone here in El Paso just yesterday. And you raised that here in this forum. What policy could possibly have ever prevented something like that from happening?
The elimination of Fast and Furious. There is an appetite for weapons from the United States.
But we don't know that weapon had anything to do with Fast and Furious.
That's right, we don't know, okay? But we could be assured that it was not one of ours if we did not have this quid pro quo relationship between a program sanctioned by the government to allow weapons and ammunition to go into a drug-infested community. The weapons are made 9 out of 10 that are used to fight with in Mexico come from the United States. You got to say that the bullets are coming from there as well. Now, you want to talk about a bullet made in America, in the black market, sold into the Mexican community, ostensibly, put into the barrel of a gun made in America, and fired back into the United States. Okay, that is a recipe for disaster. We have got to get after that. Neither of these guys has talked about how to get after that. Sylvester Reyes is a proponent of fast and furious, putting weapons in the hands. You don't win a drug war by arming the drug dealers. Nor do you mitigate the circumstances by legalizing it and then making your community high already when we have an epidemic of alcohol-related deaths on the streets and highways in the 16th Congressional District.